ask you just to give me a little bit of context on that one, Chris. What was initially the seller's situation? We're talking about Robert Jensen. So what was his initial situation and the condition of the property?
In his situation, he could no longer afford to pay his mortgage, and
Okay.
so the best situation I thought for him was going to be a subject to where someone just took over his current payments. Um, he was already a month behind. He was about to be 2 months behind on his mortgage, and so I just needed to find a buyer that would be willing to pay the 2 months arrears, and I think we gave him like $1,000 cash just to help him move and to walk away from the property, which he was more than happy to do. It was just I had to find a buyer that was also going to be able to live there the first year because the HOA said that you had to buy it and live there the first year before you could even rent it.
Oh wow. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember that one. Okay. So it ended up being a subject to deal, correct?
Correct. Yeah, I found a guy that lived actually a couple blocks from there, and
Yeah.
he was willing to buy it, move into it the first year, and then he may rent it out afterwards. But he was willing to live it the first year.
Oh, that's great. Okay, good. Let me ask you, Chris. You know, during those conversations you had with Robert, and whatever difficulties you got to find throughout the process, was there anything that you could have learned from this particular deal that you could apply in future deals?
Um, I mean, not necessarily. The only thing is, maybe on that deal, in the preliminary numbers, which I try to tell people are estimates because you can't know the exact numbers until they all come in at the very end to escrow, anyways. But
Yeah.
the closing costs being a little bit higher than what he thought he was, so he was a little upset because the out of pocket money was going to be higher than he expected. But I tried to explain to him I don't control closing costs, and we can only estimate what closing costs are in the beginning. You
All
can't
right.
you can't know how the exact amounts. Sometimes the seller will tell you they're behind HOA such and such amount, and then when it comes into escrow, it's a little bit more. And so, trying to re-emphasize to customers that these are, a buyer that these are just estimate numbers and could come in a little bit higher.
Okay, gotcha. Well, definitely that's a good learning piece that you can, you could try to avoid in the future or try to make it better in the
Yeah,
future.
yeah.
Um, sure. So, um, would you walk me through this process with the seller? Like what techniques or strategies did you use to build rapport and negotiate with the seller?
Well, yeah, in some aspects, I was a little bit lucky because there was already pain there. The guy was behind on his mortgage. He couldn't make his mortgage. And so he was a little bit open to anything that could help his situation. And, I told him a cash deal, he didn't have enough equity where a cash deal was going to make any sense for him. That this was pretty much his only route was to allow me to try to find somebody that could move into it the first year and take over subject to. And so he was open to it.
All right, that's fantastic. So would you say that this deal was not challenging at all? It was kind of easy to get
No,
through.
well, it was definitely challenging to find a buyer because it's one thing to find an investor that will buy it subject to. That's not the hardest part, but to find somebody that happens to live there the first year is harder because it eliminates most investors because most investors don't want to buy it and move into it. So I had to find somebody that would buy it and move into it. I actually have another lady that I'm working with right now. I'm trying to get under contract. She's in the same similar situation where she doesn't have enough equity to sell it cash. She's already looking to try to buy another one, but she's in the same situation. Someone that buys it will have to move into it the first year. And I said, let me try to find somebody that will do that.
Gotcha. All right. Did that conversation with Robert happen all of the time over the phone, or at some point did you go visit the property?
Never visited. It was all over the phone or text.
Okay, great.
But he
How
was
long?
difficult too because he was just, if I can, to be honest, he was kind of a pain in the ass where he would literally like 2, 3, 4 times a day, "Hey, can you call me right away? It's important." Call him up and it's like nothing important. It's just like some question. And he was just like, he had major anxiety. He's just like, you know, I don't, how is this going to go? How am I going to do this? And I explained to him certain things like over and over and over again. I go to the gym and he'd be texting me and I'm just like, but you know, some people are just need more hand holding.
Yeah. All right. I guess it's comprehensible, especially when you get to that point of having to sell your property because things got out of your hands, right? So
Yeah.
it's kind of understandable. Um, how long did you end up working on this deal? Like, how long did it take you to make
Uh,
a deal?
I mean, I think I got him under contract within about a week.
Mm.
About, you know, it was about a week that I got him under contract, and then it took me probably another week to find a buyer. And but it was I think done in about a month.
Oh, okay.
It was closed in a
Yep.
bit from start to finish. I think within about a month.
All right. That's nice. And that is
And that was only
consistency too.
because they also had the HOA had to approve the buyer, so it took a few extra days because we had to go through the HOA and get stuff from the HOA. And
Uh-huh. All right. So you mentioned that after escrow you found a little bit of hiccups there. So what was the final ROI on this deal, and was there any unexpected expense?
uh, no, apart from like the guy, like I said, the buyer was upset when he got the final HUD that the amount was higher than it was expected. Even though I tried to explain to
Uh-huh.
him it was nothing, like my numbers were consistent, but closing costs ended up being higher. Um, some expenses like that sometimes they're going to be higher.
Yeah. And how much was the final ROI?
The final what?
The final revenue or profit?
Only
Did it
7,000. Yeah, I actually had to cut it
seven
down.
grand?
Actually, I actually had to cut it down to get the deal to go through because of the guy. It's like I'm not going to sign because it's, you know, ended up being $5,000 more or something. So I gave him a couple $1,000s of my assignment fee. Some is better than none.
Gotcha. All right. Perfect. So far, Chris, how do you feel about our service?
Like I said, getting a good amount of leads, and I can't complain on that. I had a couple bad luck things. I think if I would have had better luck go my way with those, then I'd be, you know, in a better situation. But like I said, there's only so much I can control, and I'm just going to move on. I'm trying to get a few wrapped up here in August, and then, you know, that's all I can do.
Okay.
I've had a
Do you
couple come
feel that you?
through. I've had a few come through. From like I think I had 2 from Kentucky and 1 or 2 from South Carolina, which South Carolina is not even a wholesale state. You have to double close, but
Yeah.
but nothing major.
All
Most
right.
is in
Yeah,
Florida, Texas.
sometimes, you might get one lead out of area here and there. It's kind of normal whenever you're doing
Yeah,
digital marketing. People could
yeah,
be traveling to different states, stuff like that. So yeah, it's kind of part of the game.
yeah.
But
The thing I
but
was
yeah,
going to
I'm
ask,
glad to
I
hear
think,
that you are
yeah, I think you guys have Texas and Florida down as list. I think I put Atlanta, but I haven't really gotten that many leads from Atlanta. I don't know if there's any way that you can maybe make mention of Atlanta. Um, Good thing is that lady who, the one that fell through, ended up being on a property in Atlanta, and she was like, "Yeah, if you come, you know, if you get any more subject twos in Atlanta, let me know. I try to buy one every month, so I have another person that I can feed there. So Atlanta would be nice if I could get some additional leads in Atlanta.
yeah, but only Atlanta, right?
Primarily, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, definitely we can make some adjustments there to try to boost it up. Um
I don't
now
know. I think I got a couple early leads from Georgia, but I haven't got one in a while from Atlanta. So I didn't, or Georgia. So I don't know if like they're still doing anything in Atlanta or not. I don't know.
we can definitely check that for sure. Let me ask you, Chris, do you think that our marketing strategies and also coaching have contributed to your success with this particular deal with Robert?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I'm still fine. I'm still happy with the service. Unfortunately, this week, like I said, it was a little bit harder than I wanted to work down there, and so
Yeah,
I got a little catching up to do, but that's okay. These next few days, I'm just gonna be working hard and catching up.
yeah, getting yourself busy for sure. All right. At this point, would you recommend our services to other investors and real estate entrepreneurs?
Yeah.
All right, great. Now, what do you think, Chris, that you're doing different to other investors that is generating you results?
Um, Man, I don't know. I think a lot of it's just how you talk to people and trying to build rapport and making people like you and trust you. Not trying
That is
to come. I talk with quite a few people who have dealt with wholesalers and they've had bad experiences. They kind of say they're like car salesmen and these type of things. So just trying to come across as someone who actually cares and trying to look out for their situation, trying to put them in a better situation as well.
that is great. Is there any piece of advice that you would give to other real estate investors that are just starting out?
Um, Man, I would just say, I mean, if I was given any kind of advice, it would just be, like I said, trying to communicate with people in a caring way and not just in a salesy way. And follow up. I have a bunch of early leads I'm gonna this week follow up with and just see where they're at. Did they sell their house? A lot of times they didn't want to lower their price a month ago, but now when I follow up with them a month later, they might be like, "Man, I need to do something. We're not getting any showings." Now they might be willing to go down some, or something. So it's just follow up, follow up, follow up.
I totally agree with that. All right. Now, Chris, what was what was the location of this property from Robert?
That was in Pompano Beach, Florida.
Pompano Beach. All right.
Mhm.
Got it. And was the property initially listed? I'm guessing it was not.
Um, I don't think so. I know it was not listed. It was an off market deal.
Okay. Do you remember how much was Robert asking for the property? What was his initial asking price?
I don't think. I think he was pretty open, and I think even on the very first call, I had originally just started trying to get him to consider um, subject to because I could tell based on what he owed, he was not going to have equity, and a new cash
Uh-huh.
offer wasn't going to be what's going to be helpful for him. So I was right from the beginning, just trying to steer him into doing subject to.
Okay, gotcha. So how much
Typically, I
of
go in with the cash offer first or whatnot, but in his situation, he was already behind. I was like, it was just like a perfect situation for subject to because just knew I was going to need to find somebody that would take over his payment, pay his arrears, and he didn't have equity, so you know what
right, right. So how much was your final offer?
He owed, I think, I want to say he owed 168. It ended up after everything coming out to about 180, 185.
Was that your final offer or the ARV?
That was with the going subject to route with entry fee, um, with how much the buyer was going to have to pay, and the value of the condo was anywhere from 200 to 225, depending on. But in his condition, it would have been like 200, maybe low 200, below 200, because
All
his
right.
was outdated.
Got it,
His
got it.
condo was outdated, and nothing had ever been done to it.
Gotcha. All right. Now, well, we know that the motivation was very clear. The guy was behind on mortgage and having a hard time with that. Now, if you have to rank it, like how difficult was closing this deal?
It actually was very difficult because, like I said, it's one thing to find an investor to buy it, it's another thing to have to find someone that's going to buy it and live in it. So that made the more challenging part. And what's crazy is the other one that I had fall out in Atlanta that I told you, it actually was the same situation where the condo required somebody to live in it the first year. And I had found a buyer who was going to buy it and buy it for her daughter so her daughter could live in it the first year. Uh,
That
but yeah, I mean, but it's not exactly easy to find a buyer that can live in it the first year.
gotcha. Yeah, so you kind of had some luck there as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
Okay, good stuff. When was the closing day? Do you remember?
Uh, no, I mean, I could try to look it up here. Jensen. It looks like it closed and funded on the 17th of July.
What date in July? I'm sorry.
July 17th.
July 17th. All right.
Yeah.
Great stuff, Chris. Congratulations on that one. Definitely that's good stuff, good moves. I understand how frustrating it could be whenever you're kind of ready to get there, but things out of your control just come up and let them fall through. But of course, there's still a lot of room for you to make more deals. I know that
Yeah.
you are currently working on some others. So man, congratulations. I think it's a great start.